All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time it is when you hear this message, I pray that you're poised to receive, to accept, and to respond to words of wisdom. Ashe. I'm thinking about the various effects of colonization. The colonial hangover crops up in a lot of different ways, but the one of the most significant underlying effects of colonization, particularly for us, people of African descent, is that we have this deep seated doubt in everything African, right? The colonial experience creates an inferiority complex, quite simply. And you'll see that we will try to compensate for that inferiority complex in a variety of different ways. And one of the ways that we would, at least I have recognized it, is that the more traditional something is, the more authentically African something is, the more doubt that people have about it, right? And so, as a traditional um, devotee, a traditional Ifa priest, I have over the years experienced all these different waves of doubt and doubt and doubt. People, even people who are practicing, they have all this doubt, and they're not articulating it as doubt. They're trying to compensate for it in a variety of different ways, right? And so, one of the ways I'm reminded of this came at the very beginning of my priesthood, in the sense that when I went to get initiated in Nigeria, this is after my my first 4 years of my apprenticeship. I went to initiate in Nigeria, and while I was there, I met a woman who saw me practicing. I was doing Ose, and she says, "Y- you know some things. How do I learn how to do what I saw you doing?" And so I said, "Well, okay. You need to learn this verse, you need to learn to recite this, you need to learn that verse, and then you have." She had recently been initiated, so then you got your own Odu. You need to learn a verse or two of your own Odu, blah blah blah. And then she, mid sentence, she just cut me off. Odu, Odu. I ain't got no time to be learning Odu. Oshun is within me. And she went on to tell me, an elaborate story about how she was embodying Orisha, and what I was describing was something antiquated and outdated and obsolete, and she didn't have to do all that. And so, you know, I listened to her, and based on what she was describing to me, my assessment was that she just didn't think that the verses and the recitation was necessary. So, hey, what you're saying is that you want to be, not only you want to be a devotee, but you want to be a priestess of Orisha, but you don't want to learn any verses. You don't want to learn to chant any sacred text. That would be like saying you want to be a Christian, but you want to ignore the Bible, or you want to practice Islam, but the Quran is is not necessary, right? And that's, it's just impossible, because the basis of Christianity is the Bible, and the basis of Islam is the Quran, and so on. Every religion has their sacred text, right? But really, what she was saying was the tradition doesn't really know. The traditionalists don't really know. The Africans over there who doing it like they did, 5,000 years ago, they don't really know. I know, right? And so that was the beginning, and I started to see little things like that. Of course, as the years progressed, then you'll see people say things like, um, the Yoruba themselves are actually not West Africans. This elaborate system that you see, and this, you know, profound well of wisdom that's embedded in Ifa and all these other kinds of drum language and dance and textiles, etc. That's not really the product of the wide-nosed, dark-skinned, nappy-headed Africans. It was really the northern, cinnamon-colored, wavy-haired, aquiline-featured Egyptians who brought that. The Africans just picked that up from the Egyptians, right? Which is ridiculous, right? That what they're saying is that, again, there's absolutely no way that the Africans, the thick-boned, broad-shouldered, stocky Africans are beasts of burden, and they couldn't possibly come up with this high civilization. It had to have been these folks up in the Mediterranean, right? But it's because of colonization. This is just another way that the people's inferiority complex, it crops up. That's what they're really saying. The same thing is true of the people who are trying to say, well, oh yeah, well, we are Hebrews, the Yorubas are Hebrews, and all they're really saying is that I have an inferiority complex, and I don't believe that the Africans could possibly know this. It has to be attributed to somebody else. And then over the years, another way I've seen this inferiority complex crop up is where the people will say, Ifa is not actually a religion, Ifa is a science. Orisha is a science, right? And they try to draw these lines between every little thing. See, Shango is electricity and Ogun is metallurgy, and this is and they want it to be. It isn't just that those Orisha are associated with those principles, because they are, but what they're trying to say is that the only way that I can legitimize Orisha devotion is by making a scientific equivalency. Without these scientific equivalencies, then that stuff is just, folklore, superstition, hocus pocus. But that's because of the inferiority complex. They want to compensate for it by legitimizing it, sanitizing it, by linking it to what they consider science. Right? And on and on and on and on. There are all these different examples. Some people who have the inferiority complex, they have this deeply seated doubt in the tradition as it is, will tell you that, oh, you see those gray-haired old men over there, those aren't the real custodians of the tradition. The tradition, Yoruba tradition, is really matrilineal. It's really matrilineal. See, what happened was the women used to control it, and then the men took it over, and that's why it is the way it is today. But in reality, it's supposed to be a matrilineal or a matrifocal kind of a tradition. But that is just a reflection of our inferiority complex. That's an after effect of colonization to make you doubt and incredulous. You can't believe that this is the actual tradition, the thing that made all of these wonderful, incredible bodies of wisdom and proverbial wisdom and songs and chants and all of that couldn't possibly be what I'm looking at right now. Right? And I know it's difficult. It's hard to just look at all of it as it is right now and say that, yes, this magnificent tradition with this great history and all these elaborate rituals and ceremonies and medicines and blah, blah, blah. In spite of all of that, you know what happened? We got our asses kicked. It was a war. It raged on for centuries. And we took a major series of losses. Not just one. It wasn't just one big battle of so-and-so. We got our behinds handed to us over and over and over again. That is true. That is true. But that doesn't mean that because we lost, that everything about our system is now just another justification of our total inferiority, and that we have to compensate for everything that we do by attaching it to something else or somehow explaining it away and, rationalizing all this other stuff. No, none of that is necessary. None of that is necessary. And none of that is reality. None of that is the reality. None of that is what and it is going to redeem us on top of that. None of those ideas and concepts and beliefs and wishes are going to redeem our tradition, redeem our people, and legitimize us in the eyes of the world. So I do not subscribe to the belief that my system of sacrifice has to somehow match up with the Christian idea of sacrifice, right? Because it's the Christians who say that you don't have to sacrifice no, because Jesus was the last sacrifice or something like that, right? I don't have to believe that, right? The people who want our system to match other people's system come up with this idea that, oh yeah, well, at some point, Orisha lifestyle is going to evolve, and we're not going to need to sacrifice anymore, or we're not going to need to sacrifice animals anymore. The sacrifice is just conceptual. It's an idea. See, I don't have to accept that. I don't have to accept that because I'm not equating the fact that 500 years ago we took a loss with that's our identity. The fact that we lost 500 years ago, that isn't the sum total of our identity. Okay? I don't have to modernize my tradition in order for it to be acceptable. I don't have to adhere to or adopt the Muslim concept of, pilgrimages to prove that we are devout too. See, we take pilgrimage, so we're devout. I don't have to match my religion and my beliefs with science in order to demonstrate that, there's reasoning and logic and precision in what we do. I don't have to do that. Right? Now, what I do have to do is I have to take advantage of the reality. I speak more than one language. Just to give you an analogy to help you understand what I'm saying, I speak more than one language. I speak English, I speak Spanish. Okay. But I don't speak them at the same time. I don't speak them simultaneously. I'm not using 5 words of English and 2 words of Spanish and 1 word of English and 3 words of Spanish back and forth just to prove that I can speak both languages. I speak both languages. When it's time for me to speak Spanish, I speak Spanish. When it's time for me to speak English, I speak English. And I likewise don't have to be constantly saying that you could say this in English and then you say like this in Spanish. And then there's this word in English and there's this word in Spanish. And then there's this word in English and there's that word in Spanish. There's no need for me to do that. I can express whatever ideas I need to express in English. And then I can express whatever ideas I need to express in Spanish. So it is with Ifa. So it is with Orisha. And science and business and government. Right? If this is a better scientific system, then I practice that science. If this is a better financial system, I practice that financial system. But when it comes to my religion, when it comes to the custodianship of my identity, of where I come from, the explanation of what I have come out of, what my source is, and where I ultimately go, and how I conduct myself all in between, that's the job of my Ifa. I don't have to make it square with anything else. Right? And that is what makes me say I am proudly Isese. I'm unapologetically African. I don't have to go through all these explanations and equivalencies and all that to make me feel like what I'm doing is acceptable. It doesn't have to be acceptable to you. It doesn't have to be acceptable to other people. I don't have to come up with explanations for everything that I do and everything I believe in order to make the scientists feel comfortable or to give them a vote of confidence. These guys really are civilized. I don't care. That's not my problem. You got your own belief system. You follow it. And if it brings you to a better place, you can become a better person as a result of what you believe, rock on. But this is what makes me be a better person. This is what allows me to help other people be better people. So I follow the rules of what I do as cleanly and purely as I possibly can, just like I follow the grammatical rules of English to communicate in English. And I follow the grammatical rules of Spanish to communicate in Spanish. And the little bit of Yoruba that I can say, I follow the grammatical rules of Yoruba to be able to communicate what I need to communicate in Yoruba. Okay. And so I want to communicate this in this season with the intent to encourage all of my people, all of my people. Hey, let go of all this idea of hybridization. Let it go. Now, if you practice a hybrid tradition, if whatever you do is already a hybrid, then I'm not talking to you, because I know there are some syncretic traditions that are out there, particularly here in the diaspora. If you practice a hybrid syncretic religion, then fantastic. If that works for you, great. It's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about if you practice Orisha lifestyle, Isese tradition, as it is passed down from West Africa and practiced in the diaspora, let go of all of those. Unburden yourself. Unburden yourself. You don't have to match up with the Christians or the Muslims or the scientists or anybody else. Just practice Orisha lifestyle as it has been practiced since the beginning of time. And if you want explanations for why we lost 500 years ago, then you need to look at the record. You need to study what actually happened. It wasn't a religious war, y'all. We didn't lose because Christianity was a better religion. We lost because they had better war tactics. They used better stratagems. They had superior firepower. Whatever. That's what it was. So if you want to win, then you figure out what kinds of things you can adopt in your military, in your finance, in your banking, in your business, in your politics. How can you practice something that will allow you to increase your influence and control over your life and over your environment today, tomorrow, and for generations to come? Okay. And so as we're able to do that, it will free us up. It will release us. Like I said, it will unburden us from this desire to constantly be trying to accommodate the ideas and the expectations of other traditions. I can't tell you how long it takes for people to accept and realize things like we don't have astrology. It's hard because of that colonial hangover. We think that we have to have astrology because astrology is so cool. Astrology is so cool. It is, but it's astrology. That's not a Yoruba practice. If you want to practice astrology, then go find an astrologer and let the astrologer show you the way. We don't have numerology. Sure, there's a number system that and sure, I mean, loosely we understand what the constellations are. We have a relationship with the heavenly bodies, but we're not astrologers. We're not numerologists. Find somebody who practices numerology and let them show you the way. Adhere to whatever rules that they give you in that system. But when you come to Orisha lifestyle, when you come to Isese, then you just practice what we do in our tradition, in our lineage. Let that guide you. Let that be, accept the completion and the wholeness of that system as it is. Unburden yourself. You're going to be so much happier. You're going to be so much freer because you're going to be able to focus and see things as they truly are and follow through to the nth degree within our tradition. And where you meet the limits of what the tradition does, then you can comfortably start to adopt other kinds of practices that will allow you to be more effective in whatever it is that you want to do in your life. Okay. This is super important for the leaders. This is crucial for the leaders that you have a very clear perspective on what you're doing. I'm talking to the folks who are out there and want to change the world through a positive influence. If you're one of those people, then I want you to find out how I can help you and your people, your family, your loved ones start living the medicine that will heal your life, that will heal the lives of those who you're destined to serve, and will help you to fulfill the mission and address the cause that you were born to address. Visit me at obafemio.com or orishalifestyle.com. I look forward to working with you. Bye for now. Odabo.